He was the quiet kid in the back of the class. You know the type. The one who never raised his hand, never made a scene, and always looked like he was trying to disappear. His name was Marcus. Marcus wasn't dumb, but he wasn't exceptional either, at least, not on paper. He stuttered when he spoke in front of the class, so he avoided it at all costs. His teachers described him as polite, but disengaged. His classmates rarely noticed him, and when they did, it was usually followed by a chuckle, a joke, or worse, pity. His report cards were a collection of C's and occasional B's. Comments like, needs to participate more, and lacks confidence were routine. He wasn't failing, but he definitely wasn't standing out. And truth be told, he didn't believe he had anything special inside him. Except for one thing. He had a dream. Marcus wanted to go to Hillcrest University, a place he'd seen only in brochures and online videos. It was a top-tier school known for its innovation, creativity, and the kind of students who changed the world. Marcus wanted to be one of them. He worked quietly for years, studying harder than anyone knew, practicing mock interviews by himself in the mirror, staying up late to perfect his application essay. No one saw the effort. No one even knew he applied. But to Marcus, it was everything. The day the email arrived, his heart pounded. He clicked it open slowly, eyes scanning for one word, congratulations. But it wasn't there. Instead, the letter politely informed him that he had not been selected. The usual corporate language filled the rest. We appreciate your application. We had many strong candidates. Best of luck. Marcus stared at the screen for a moment, completely still. His chest tightened, but he didn't cry. He didn't throw anything. He didn't scream or collapse. In fact, he smiled. Yes, really. Marcus leaned back in his chair and whispered something to himself. Words that would shape the rest of his life. This is happening for me, not to me. I don't know how yet, but it'll work out. His best friend, Jamal, happened to be in the room. When he saw Marcus smiling, he raised an eyebrow. Wait, that was your dream school, right? Yeah. And they just rejected you. Yup. So why are you smiling? Marcus didn't hesitate. Because maybe this rejection is part of something better I just can't see yet. Jamal laughed. Not in a cruel way, but in a man, you're crazy kind of way. Bro, you just lost your only shot. What's there to be happy about? But Marcus wasn't pretending. He wasn't faking optimism or burying his pain. Something deep inside him had shifted. A quiet voice, one that had been buried under years of doubt and insecurity, finally spoke up. And it said, what if this is part of plan? What if life isn't against you? What if it's been helping you all along? That night, Marcus made a decision that changed everything. He would start acting like life was rigged in his favor, even if the evidence didn't show it yet, even if he didn't have proof, even if people thought he was naive or delusional. He would believe that every delay was divine, that every closed door was protecting him, that every so-called setback was actually a setup for something better. Most people would call that unrealistic, but Marcus didn't care, because in that moment, he realized something powerful. You don't need evidence to believe. You need belief to create the evidence. From that day forward, Marcus walked differently, not with arrogance, but with quiet certainty. He still didn't know what would come next. He had no backup plan, no college acceptance letters, no roadmap to success. But what he did have was the kind of faith that bends reality, the kind of mindset that attracts opportunities others don't see, the kind of inner peace that can't be shaken by rejection. Marcus didn't get his dream school, but he got something better. He got the belief that life was actually working for him. And that was the beginning of everything. Marcus didn't suddenly become successful overnight. There was no aha moment that turned him into a millionaire. No viral video. No lottery win. And definitely no fairy godmother. What changed was subtle. It wasn't his circumstances. It was his response to them. He changed one thing that eventually changed everything else. He stopped asking, what if I fail? And started asking, what if this is exactly what I need to win bigger? That one question rewired how he thought. It didn't erase the struggle, but it gave the struggle meaning. When most people would panic, Marcus paused. When most gave up, he leaned in. And slowly, The setbacks started to look more like stepping stones. Let's take his internship story. Marcus had applied to a well-known marketing firm. It was competitive, but he believed in his growth. He worked on his resume for weeks, rehearsed his answers, even got new clothes for the interview. But a week later, he got a simple, cold email. "We regret to inform you." The old Marcus would have spiraled. He would have said, "Of course, I'm not good enough." But not this time. Instead, he looked at the screen, took a breath, and said, "Cool. Maybe that's not where I meant to grow." That simple shift, from despair to curiosity, saved him from wasting days in self-pity. Then came another blow. A month later, he had lined up an interview with a startup. It wasn't fancy, but it was exciting, young, creative, and full of potential. On the morning of the interview, he got in his car, and it wouldn't start. Dead battery. No backup ride. No Uber nearby. Just stuck. He missed the interview. Again, most people would have cursed the universe. But Marcus, he smiled and said out loud, "Maybe that job wasn't meant for me anyway." Not in denial, not fake positivity, but in faith. He didn't lie to himself. He simply chose to trust the unknown. Here's what was really happening. Marcus was retraining his brain. Every time he responded to a challenge with belief instead of fear, he strengthened new mental pathways. Pathways that looked for growth and failure. That found peace in delay. That turned rejection into redirection. He started seeing life not as something out to get him, but something designed to work with him. The way he saw it, maybe life wasn't random. Maybe every no was just a more powerful yes waiting around the corner. And then, something strange started to happen. Things began working out. Not dramatically, not instantly, but undeniably. A friend he hadn't spoken to in a year randomly messaged him about a small freelance project. It paid less than he hoped, but he said yes anyway, just to keep moving. That project led to another, and then another. And soon, that same friend introduced him to a startup founder looking for a full-time team member. The position? Marketing assistant. The role? Remote, flexible, and perfect for Marcus's skill set. The old Marcus would have doubted himself. Would have said, "I'm not qualified." But this Marcus, the one acting as if life was rigged in his favor, said, "This came to me for a reason. I'm ready." He got the job. From there, the momentum grew. Marcus still stumbled. He still made mistakes. But now, he didn't crumble when things went wrong. He didn't panic when plans fell apart. Because deep down, he believed, if it didn't work out, it wasn't meant to. If it hurts now, it's helping later. If it's delayed, it's because it's being perfected. That belief gave him confidence. That confidence shaped his actions. And those actions changed his results. The truth is, Marcus didn't get lucky. He got aligned. He started acting like the kind of person who expected good things, no matter what. And when you do that, when you show up like life has your back, people notice. Opportunities notice. Doors you didn't even know existed start to unlock. Because the world responds to who you believe you are. That's how Marcus went from a rejected, stuttering kid to a confident, growing professional with options. Not by faking it, not by forcing it, but by faithfully acting as if everything was always working out. And slowly, it did it. It had been 6 months since Marcus made the decision to act as if life was rigged in his favor. In those 6 months, a lot had happened, but not in the way most people measure success. There were no big wins, no viral breakthroughs. Instead, there was quiet progress, a shift in energy, a calm confidence that stayed with him, even when things weren't going as planned. On one particular Saturday, Marcus was walking through town with nothing to do. No job interviews lined up, no client meetings, just time. He wandered into a small, independent bookstore, the kind that smells like old pages and forgotten wisdom. He wasn't looking for anything in particular. He drifted past fiction, biographies, and finally found himself in the self-help section. A single book caught his eye, not because of the title, but because of a line inside. He opened it at random, and on the corner of one yellowed page, he saw a sentence underlined by someone else's pen. Act as if the universe is conspiring in your favor. He froze. Those words hit him like lightning. It was as if the book wasn't just written for him, but to him. He read it again. Slowly. Act as if the universe is conspiring in your favor. Marcus closed the book, held it in his hands, and whispered to himself, "That's exactly what I've been doing, and I'm not stopping." Just then, a soft voice broke the silence. Powerful quote, isn't it? Marcus looked up. A woman stood beside him, smiling. She looked to be in her early 30s, holding 2 books of her own. He nodded. "Yeah, feels like it was meant for me today." They struck up a casual conversation about books, beliefs, and how strange it is when the right message shows up at the right time. They chatted for 15 minutes, maybe 20. Then came a moment Marcus would never forget. The woman looked at him and said, "I know this might sound random, but I run a startup. We're looking for someone to help with our social media. Someone who's hungry, who's willing to learn, who thinks like this." She pointed to the quote in his hand. "You wouldn't happen to be looking for something right now, would you?" Marcus blinked. Was this real? He had no formal experience, no portfolio, no fancy degree. But he had something else, something stronger, belief. So he looked her in the eye and said, "I'm the right guy. I learn fast, I don't quit, and I trust that this is happening for a reason." She smiled. "Then let's talk." A week later, Marcus started working remotely as a part-time social media assistant. It didn't pay a lot, but it was something. A start. A seed planted. And that seed? It grew fast. Marcus dove in. He studied digital marketing at night, learned design tools, studied copywriting, took online courses, watched YouTube tutorials like his life depended on it. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't need a certificate to feel qualified. He just kept showing up every day, as if life was lining things up for him. Within 2 months, the company promoted him to full-time. 3 months later, he was leading campaigns. 6 months after that, he was helping train new hires, people with more experience on paper than him. From one opportunity to another, doors kept opening. Not because Marcus had all the answers, not because he had a perfect plan, but because he walked like the answers would show up when he needed them. He trusted the process, even when it didn't make sense. He leaned into the unknown, even when it felt uncomfortable. And most importantly, he kept acting like the universe was working with him, not against him. The domino effect had begun. That one conversation in the bookstore led to his first break. That break led to experience. That experience led to confidence. And confidence, that led to even more doors opening. Doors Marcus once believed were closed to people like him. He now understood something powerful. When you believe life is on your side, you walk differently. You speak differently. You attract differently. And people feel that. Because life doesn't just respond to talent or degrees. It responds to alignment, to energy, to faith in motion. So when people later asked Marcus, "How did you break in without experience?" he smiled and answered, "I didn't wait to feel ready. I just acted like life had already cleared the way." And that belief, it did the heavy lifting. That'd be why the time Marcus turned 27, most people who had known him in school didn't recognize him anymore. The kid who used to sit quietly in the back of the class was now managing marketing for 3 different companies. Not as an employee, but as a trusted consultant. He had written a best-selling book on mindset titled, "The Power of Acting As If." Ironically, the same mindset that once made people think he was delusional had now become the reason others were paying him to speak on stages, lead workshops, and inspire thousands. Marcus wasn't loud about it. He didn't brag or flaunt. But the results spoke for themselves. The same people who once ignored his emails, skipped over his applications, or laughed when he said he had big dreams. Those same people were now inviting him onto their podcasts, asking for quotes for their blogs, and begging him for advice. It was surreal. But Marcus, he stayed grounded, because he knew something they didn't. One day, during a high-profile podcast interview, the host leaned forward and asked him, "Marcus, what's your secret? How did you go from invisible to unstoppable?" The room got quiet. Marcus smiled and answered, without hesitation, "I just act like life is on my side, even when it doesn't look like it. Especially then." The host leaned back, surprised. "That's it." Marcus nodded, because to him, it wasn't just a cute quote. It was everything. He didn't mean he never failed. In fact, just a year before, one of his campaigns tanked. He'd poured weeks into it, research, design, strategy, only for it to underperform massively. A younger version of himself would have spiraled, doubted his ability, considered quitting. But not this Marcus. Instead, he said, maybe this flop is creating space for something better. He sat with the lesson, adjusted, and within 2 months, closed a deal with a different client that tripled what the failed project had cost him. See, Marcus had learned something most people never do. You can't let failure name you. You can't let disappointment write your ending. Because when you believe things will work out, you don't just survive the storm. You walk through it like you're already on the other side. Marcus's mindset wasn't blind optimism. It was trained resilience. He had built a habit of asking himself better questions. What's this challenge here to teach me? What if this delay is actually divine timing? How would I show up if I already knew this was working out? These questions shaped his energy. And energy, that's what people feel. That's why job offers came without resumes. Why opportunities showed up without effort. Why strangers became clients, and setbacks turned into blessings in disguise. Marcus understood that. When you walk like things are working out, you talk differently. You move with calm. You carry clarity. You stop chasing, and you start attracting. People notice that. The world notices that. Because confidence without arrogance, faith without fear is rare. And when you become someone who doesn't flinch in the face of uncertainty, others follow your lead. They trust you, not because of your success, but because of your certainty. One of Marcus's most viral quotes later came from a small clip filmed at a college Q&A. A student asked him, "What if I try believing and it still doesn't work?" Marcus looked at him, paused, and said, "Then believe again, because it's not about pretending. It's about practicing over and over until life starts to believe you too." That moment hit millions online. Why? Because it wasn't about being perfect. It was about being persistent, about choosing every day to act like things are working, even when the evidence says otherwise. That's how Marcus changed his life. Not through luck, not through privilege, but through posture. The posture of someone who walks into every room as if it's already been prepared for him. And here's the truth. When you act as if things will work out, eventually they do. Not because magic happens, but because you become the kind of person who makes it happen. You don't need money to shift your mindset. You don't need high-level connections, a perfect plan, or a fancy resume to start changing your life. All you need is one small decision, a decision to believe. Not in some fantasy version of life, not in wishful thinking or blind luck, but in the idea that your mindset, your expectation, can change everything. Because here's what most people don't realize. Belief is where breakthrough begins. So what if the next time something didn't go your way, you didn't collapse? What if you paused and said to yourself, maybe this is exactly what I needed? Not as an excuse, not as a coping mechanism, but as a genuine reframe. Because what if the rejection you just got is redirecting you to something better? What if the closed door is saving you from months or years of stress? What if what feels like a delay is actually divine timing? When Marcus started thinking this way, his life changed. Not because the world suddenly got easier, but because he stopped resisting it. He stopped seeing failure as the end and started treating it as part of the setup. Think about that for a second. When you lose the deal, maybe that's creating room for the one that truly fits you. When someone walks away, maybe that's clearing space for someone who sees your value without needing convincing. When things slow down, maybe that's life giving you time to grow before it hands you more. It's not fake. It's faith in motion. When you fail, remind yourself, this isn't the end. It's just part of the setup. It's just a scene in the middle of your story, not the final chapter. And when you're in the waiting season, the quiet, uncomfortable, nothing's happening season, don't get desperate. Get expectant. Walk like the opportunity is already on its way. Talk like the right people are already searching for you. Think like the universe has already hit send. You're just waiting for the delivery. Here's the difference between people who stay stuck and the ones who break through. Most people wait until they see evidence before they believe. They say, "I'll believe it when it happens." But the ones who win, they believe first. And that belief becomes the reason things do start to happen. Their energy shifts. Their confidence rises. They stop second-guessing every move and start moving like they deserve to win. And that belief, it's magnetic. It attracts solutions. It invites opportunities. It opens conversations and builds momentum in places where nothing was moving before. The world doesn't just respond to your resume. It responds to your energy, to your posture, to the way you carry yourself when nothing's working, because that's when most people quit. But you're not going to quit, because you're going to choose belief. Not because it's easy, but because it works. So here's your reminder. Backhand index pointing right. Start acting today like life is already working out for you. Backhand index pointing right. Start walking like the door is already unlocked. Backhand index pointing right. Start thinking like the right people are already on their way to meet you. You don't need to fake anything. You just need to believe ahead of the evidence. Because once you do, something amazing happens. Life begins to mirror your mindset. You see more. You feel more. You attract more. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. You decided to trust the process, to trust yourself, to trust that even this moment is part of something bigger. So take a breath. Lift your head. Smile, even if it doesn't make sense yet, and say it out loud, like Marcus did that day. This is happening for me, not to me. I don't know how yet, but it'll work out. And guess what? It will. If this story inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe for more motivational stories every week. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, your mindset is your superpower. See you in the next one.